Welcome back to another one with the Main Beam Podcast. I'm Landon Stockman. I'm going to be one of your hosts.
Brady Shockman.
Spencer Mertens.
Adam Weaver.
Allan Richard.
We got the whole crew back in the house tonight. This is episode 2. We're going to be talking about my curse in Kansas, and
This may be a few episodes long.
it's going to be pretty long, I'm afraid. There's a lot of things to go over. Kind of all started back probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, 3 years ago now.
I first drew a bow tag in Kansas, and it was kind of our first time really even hunting out of state, I believe. And we were pretty pumped. A buddy invited us out. We were headed out there, and we had this old blue junk truck. I mean, I don't even know how it made it, to be honest.
The Blue Beater.
The blue beater.
Didn't you start turkey hunting in Kansas first?
Yeah, I guess our first deer hunt out of state, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But
it was before we had actually started really working and bought a truck. And
yeah. Well, we might have been 17.
yeah, so something like that, 17,
You know,
18.
we're headed out there for a week hunting, don't really know anything. We're just like, yeah, we're going hunting, you know. Packed the truck, packed it so high in the back seat, you couldn't even see out the back windows or anything. We had the truck loaded down, and we headed west, and we made it out there just fine, everything. And I think the first, tragedy that happened was one morning we got up on the second day we were out there hunting, and we're running a little late, and I'm flying down a 2-lane road. I don't really know how fast we were going, but I don't think we were going crazy speeds, but we passed a car, and in the part of Kansas we're in, there's no one. I mean, it's pretty deserted. So I'm flying past this car, and I don't know if Brady told me, I think that was a cop or anything.
No, I said it definitely was a cop. I said that was a cop.
I don't
work
think
zone.
I don't think nothing of it because it's
in a work zone.
No,
Yeah.
it wasn't a work
Yeah,
zone.
in
It was
In the
four-
middle of Kansas.
It's like 4 a.m. though, and there's no one around. I mean, they weren't obviously working, and I couldn't even tell how fast we were going. We were running late, and I'm determined to get us where we're going because we're supposed to basically meet up with my buddy and get in the stand before, shooting. We got all this camera equipment to set up, everything. So I would want to tell you 3 or 4 minutes down the road, I finally see the lights, in the back. And I'm like, dang, there's lights, we keep going. And probably go for another 3 or 4 minutes, I'm still just down
Probably woke him up.
yeah, just flying down the road still. And he keeps getting closer and closer, and I'm like, who knows, maybe, I didn't at that point still know, maybe it's cops. So I pull over, just thinking, hopefully they'll blow past us, pull over behind us, and I'm like, nice, Guy walks up. He's like, well, I pulled you over today. It's like, you were going a little fast, and I'm like, thinking in the back of my head, a little fast, that's not bad, not terrible. And he honestly never even told us how fast we were going. And
No, he never would say.
It may be because he didn't.
I don't think he actually knew how fast. He just knew we'd
clock
come
us.
by him faster than what we should have been going.
Yeah. But I mean, I was moving. But anyway, I'm thinking, okay, not bad. We haven't, he's saying we went a little fast. And so he's like, well, I see you're from Missouri. He said, do you know what the speed limit is on 2-lane road in Missouri? And I'm like, 70, it's 60 here, I think. But I'm 17. I'm trying to, give me a little space.
Mhm.
I'm like, 70? He's like, well, I'll tell you what, I don't know what it is, but there's not a road in the state of Kansas even close to the speed limit you were going. And that's at the moment I realized, this ain't good.
I'm going to jail.
This is not going to be good. So, anyway, he gets kind of a little stern, and, I mean, he had every right to be. So, I just straight up honest with him, you know what, sir? I never even see the speed limit sign. He's like, yeah, obviously. I know you didn't. I was like, all right, well, come on now. Is there even a speed limit sign out here? So goes back to his car, and he's there for a while, and I'm like, man, I'm sitting here trying to add up this is going to be an expensive trip already. We're 2 days in. Comes back, and I'm like, man, I'm honest, be honest with you. We're just trying to make it hunting, meeting a buddy, and I was like, it's getting light. I'm late. I'm really just trying to get to the woods, to hunt. And he's like, I tell you what, he's like, you can just promise me to slow down. And he's like, good luck hunting. I'm like, yeah, I will slow down. I said, I appreciate it. And he's like, all right. And then we got talking about hunting, and he was like, all right, well, good luck. I'm holding you up. And boom, off I went.
Nice.
Burning rubber.
That was day 2 though, but go back to day 1, like just as an introduction to Kansas, like sitting there. So we left home, made it out there, rolled up to the spot we were hunting, met our buddy, and it was still probably early afternoon. We were going to hang a set to sit that evening. Roll in, find a spot, set up. Awesome. Little creek, had a little creek running by us. Awesome. 2 big CRPs and some nice ridges coming down. Got our stand set up. We said, all right, we're going to walk back, eat lunch. We'll come back, get in about 1 o'clock. Before we even got out there, he's like, oh, you need to make sure you got rattling antlers and a decoy. Like they rut super hard out here. And, from back here in Missouri, half the time you rattle, nothing happens, or, everyone overcalls. So we climbed up in the stand. We weren't sitting there 10 minutes. Look up, I'm like, oh, dang, the deer standing out there. Pick up the binoculars, giant at like 200 yards. First day. I'm like, oh my. And it wasn't the first, it was the same day that other big one come into like 80 yards and walked by us all busted up.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Come in.
So our first day we were seeing giants like to begin with.
Well, no kidding. You were flying to the hunting spot the next
The first
day.
evening, we had a giant he come all the way to 80 yards. Actually, I thought it was going to happen because he was headed right to us, disappeared. And I'm like, oh, here we go. Like, that's what dreams are made of. He comes in, turns, like cuts us short. It's like 80 yards. And I'm like, what? Like, come on now.
It was ridiculous, though. Just
like I thought he was coming to us, but definitely didn't. So
just the open, the amount of open space out there, just from what you can see.
Yeah, so we were jacked after day 1, like, oh, yeah, this is going to happen.
Did you have a decoy on that?
Yeah,
we did, but,
we didn't have it out opening day, I don't think.
No, maybe we didn't pack it down there.
I don't think we packed it in because we were just like, oh, we're going to sit here just opening afternoon, just see what happens. Yeah, like 10 minutes in there, just, boom, giant already. Ridiculous.
It's when you put your rattling horns on top of your head and...
Well, I did rattle at him actually.
Yeah,
and
that's why he came into 80 yards. He was sitting 200 yards, and he grabbed the antlers, rattled, and he come all the way into 80. But shooting a bow out in middle of open ground, we were prepared to shoot. 50.
If I was Josh Bomar, I would have done it. But
You just shot him at 200.
Yeah,
just pull back and let it rip.
I'd been pulling 110 pounds back on my bow, and I would have got him. But
Yeah, I shoot 300 yards.
Besides the
with my
point,
bow.
it didn't happen. So then day 2 we get pulled over. Got a lucky break there. I guess we probably wasted all our luck on that one. Finally, I guess the rest of the trip we hunted probably 7 days, and we hunted.
Yeah, this is the rut. So it's like November. We missed the second weekend of rifle season here. So it would have been November like 14th or 8th or something. Like the 8th to the...
Somewhere in there. And we hunted basically sun up to sundown. We had nothing. Yeah. Nothing better to do other than sit in a tree and kill a deer. So after that, we hunted, I think like the 3rd day, we decided to put a decoy out. And it was really windy. Couldn't really hunt the set we hung. Didn't really have any trees because there were some cottonwoods that...
The wind switched, so we moved to the south side of the farm.
Yeah, and we had another set to hang, but the cottonwoods over there were so big it would have took a pack of ratchet straps to get it around one time, and we were like, this ain't it. So we kind of brushed in basically a little ground blind, sat there that night, and like one of the only deer that it was like a stud 4-year-old.
It had probably 3-year-old.
Had like double splits off its G2s. It was a stud.
150-inch 3-year-old.
Yeah, probably.
Heavy mass, 10-pointer, splits off his tube.
Yeah,
awesome deer.
I just remember Brady being like, "There's a giant up there," and I'm like, "Well, I don't know. What do you think I ought to do?" I was like, "Should I rattle?" And he's like, "I don't know. You can try it." And so I picked up the horns, and I was like, "Is it a shooter like this one? I don't know, And he's like, "Oh, I don't know. It just looks big." I'm like, "Okay." Get out the rattling horn, start rattling. It literally turns on
on a dime, just on a string, come right to us.
Beelines right to us, and I'm like trying to pick up my binos, like, oh, is this happening? Like, what deer is this? And then once we get a good look at it, I'm like, that's the deer we can't shoot. No wonder he's coming in.
That's the one that shredded the cedar tree.
Yeah, he
right?
marches down the hill, like shreds a tree right in front of us, and walks within.
The funniest part was, so we had just them flambeau or whatever, that buck decoy. Well, it didn't have stakes on its like we couldn't get the stakes on its
Oh
legs
yeah,
to
that
work.
was another thing, and it was so windy it kept blowing over.
He kept blowing over. So we literally took the legs off of him, stuffed it inside of him, took the antlers off, and put him like as a bedded doe. And it worked. He marched all the way into 10 yards.
Actually, on that hunt we had him standing up, and we even took we had the ozonics running, and it has like this.
The tree screw.
Yeah, tree screw to it. And we took it off, and I was jamming it in the ground just to give him something, and I was taking, I think it was in that cut milo or cut corn down there, either one.
Yeah,
and
we were trying to prop him up.
We were trying to prop him up, and every time I'd get back, I'd sit for 2 or 3 minutes, he'd blow over again. And I was getting mad, this is not happening. So we end up just leaving him as, basically a bedded doe.
And it worked.
It worked.
We just couldn't shoot that deer.
Yeah,
No.
it was a deer.
And he come literally
shoot
5 or 6 yards from us, and his head's turned looking in the field, and we could have shot him the whole time. Never obviously did. And so that was kind of the end of, we saw a bunch of quail that night and a couple other deer, but nothing big. That was kind of the end of probably day 3. Day 4, I don't think a whole lot.
That's when that 2-year-old started coming in every time.
Yeah, and we thought he was going to push the decoy over.
Yeah, and he never did.
Every morning, this 2-year-old would come in and ears peeled back, and he'd be all stanced coming into the decoy, and I'm like, this thing pushes this thing over.
You would literally watch him go go on. He'd be a couple draws over, call it whatever you could see, 500-600 yards, and you'd rattle, and 2 minutes later, boom, he'd be right there. And he'd go off into a different drainage, and then you rattle, boom, he'd be right back there.
Just a dumb young deer in the rut,
Wow.
And we just couldn't get rid of him, but it kind of occupied our time, and it was a lot of fun. He never actually pushed the decoy over, but there was a couple of times we got labbing pretty good. I thought he was coming in to, completely knock him over, and he never did. I think we saw that really big deer cross that night. A lot of deer funneled in behind us. Still, we didn't do any good, but we might have saw the largest skunk that I've ever saw.
Oh, no, dude, I'm serious. We almost...
it was huge.
Yeah, it literally come out of CRP, and we were like, oh, my, what the hell is that? You just look at it, and I was like, its tail, I swear to God, its tail stuck up 3 feet.
Yeah.
I was like, what in the hell kind of skunks are out here?
I mean, it looked like Lizzo coming down the hill with
Lizzo skunk.
Yeah, it was big. Let's just say that. So that was kind of the end of day 4 or 5.
That's when the truck broke down.
Yeah. So we get back to the truck.
Oh,
and
man.
we've been hunting all day. Get back, and keep in mind we're in the middle of nowhere. There's no lights.
This is somewhere where you don't go knock on.
Yeah,
the closest,
AAA ain't showing up out there anytime.
No, AAA's not showing up.
We've got some stories of that,
we
too,
didn't even
don't
have
we?
serp. Oh, yeah.
And you're not walking a mile down the
Don't
road to
trust
knock on the
AAA.
neighbor's door.
No.
It's, yeah.
I mean, at 17 years old, I wasn't going to go.
It'd be better to walk.
Yes. Well, we ended up having to walk a while because we didn't have service, and the trucks don't start, and me and Brady we don't know what to do. So we walk down the road, try to get some service. Finally get service, and the first person I call is my dad. And I'm like, Dad, the truck won't start. We're in the middle of nowhere, and he's like, well, what do you want me to do? I'm like, all right, well, I don't know. I mean,
Typical dad response.
He's like, I mean, I don't know what to do. You guys are out, I'm like, well, I really don't want to call my buddy, because we're hunting almost an hour and a half or better from his house. And I'm like, I think we're just going to stay in the truck tonight, but I guess just let the truck ain't, won't start. I don't know what to do. So anyway.
Well, you won't get pulled over for speeding.
No. We went from speeding to 0 miles an hour real quick.
And the only thing we kept in the truck, because we were staying in a little town, little hotel, or little motel. The only thing we had in the truck was a couple deer sticks and
preserved meats.
Nothing really to eat. And we were like,
no, I mean,
no dehydrated fruit.
We were going on this trip as cheap as possible.
Yeah.
We might have had some peanut butter crackers and
You might have to
smack.
shoot that 2-year-old just to cheat yourself for a
just to
couple days
survive.
there.
I should have been shot and be like, Cole, we've been out here for
5 days.
Yeah.
And haven't had
yeah,
nothing.
we've been stranded, dude. I had to shoot him.
This is
No
on
water.
a complete other note, but like talking about stranded, we'll have to have Floyd come on sometime. He was stranded in Canada. The guide flew in on a bush plane, landed on a lake, dropped him off for like a 7-day fishing, like remote fishing trip in Canada, had all the food, whatever. And he was like, yeah, on like day, whatever, 5, I'll fly back in, make sure you got everything you need. And then, I'll fly back in the 7th day and get you. Dude never came back.
Yeah,
So they were eating like all the canned beans and everything. They were like, fuck, what, they
didn't
were
know-
eating the fish that they had left.
They
They're
ended
like,
up
"What the
lighting their
fuck we gonna
boat on
do?"
fire. Just lit it on
Yes.
fire just to like basically, yeah. And finally someone
Yeah, someone.
them.
Oh, this
yes.
is like a real SOS.
Yes.
Like no
Yes.
one's
Oh, yeah.
coming to
Yeah,
get
no,
Yeah,
we'll
no,
literally have to get him on and have him tell. Cause
Oh my god!
Yeah.
I guess it's better to be stranded in Canada than Mexico.
And the guide was legitimately so pissed off at him because he burnt his boat down. He's like, dude,
like you left me here.
yeah.
Well, it was longer than 7 days. Wasn't it like
They were there for like
10 or
10,
15?
10 or 12 days or something.
Yeah, like it was a long shot. They were there
Dude,
for
he
4 or
literally-
5
the
extra
guy-
days.
it was a bonus hunt.
No,
like
Yeah.
the guy
You
literally
got
told
extra
him, he's
days?
like,
How
oh.
are you mad?
He's like, oh, he literally told him he forgot about him.
No
He's like,
charge
oh, I
at all.
forgot. Like not bad weather. And then he's like, I just forgot your camp was out there. Swear to God.
I would have sued him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
we
anyways.
we weren't stranded that long. We ended up basically calling my buddy and it's like, hey man, we're gonna sleep in the truck tonight, but just to let you know, like, we're gonna need to jump in the next couple of days because we're stuck out here. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. He's like, no, I'll come get you right now. And I'm like, dude, like, I hate to make you drive all the way here. And he's like, oh, no, don't worry about it. He was with some buddies and other friends and stuff, but he was a real one. Came out, gave us a jump.
So what was wrong with it?
I don't know.
The battery is bad. We got
Well,
back into town.
got a new battery.
we ended up we didn't get no new battery. It was like the middle of nowhere, and we thought about it. We were like, dang, should we? Like, we didn't know.
Oh, no, we didn't.
no, we didn't.
We
And
just
so,
kept
like,
riding on it.
yeah, like every time I'd like started, it'd be like, do you think the truck's gonna start?
Yeah,
it started. And it was starting. I'm like, okay, good. And so like the next 2 days we hunted, like I was scared to death. Like
Every time we
Shut
got
the
down,
truck off.
Yes.
And I'm
running
like,
the whole time.
all right, let's go hunt. And we'd come back and it'd start back. I don't really know what it was. Just a questionable truck in the first place that it even ever made it that far.
Oh, dude, I have no idea how it made it that far anyways.
And why you even brought
It's like
that
me and the
truck?
GMC Sonoma.
Yeah. I think on
No, the truck had no business being that
No.
far away from
But I
home.
mean, we had nothing else to drive, and we were making it happen, so it was a good one. But on like the 6th day, I guess we came out for lunch. I think just to like, oh, let's go make sure the truck starts,
Right,
So
right.
we like before it gets dark. So we take a break for lunch. I'm like, well, let's just drive a couple laps around, waste a little time. And it's like noon. We drive a couple laps around and like 2 or 3 giants around, like have does just pinched off the side of the road. And I'm like, all right, let's park this thing, go get back in, And it was pretty neat because we actually seen a deer that was, I would say 2 miles from where we were hunting, and got back in the stand and they actually came by us that night. I was like, that's the deer we saw like going down the road. It wasn't a big enough deer to kill, but
Right.
pretty cool encounter.
Of course it is.
Yeah, I think then the 7th day we were there.
This is the last day.
Yeah, the last day. One of our shooters like coming in basically on a string to our left, and it's like this is gonna happen. I mean, he's only probably
Well, it was a 30 yards.
30 yards from us, but he was in like basically a thicket, and just was like, oh, he's gonna come into the decoy. Like stays in the thicket, turns around and leaves, and I'm like, oh, go figure.
Well, all the ditches out there, they're either like, call them plum thickets or
Locust.
yeah, small locust, cedar, or big cottonwoods is all it is. So like the locusts out there, they're not like around here they get the real tall whatever black locusts or
Oh yeah.
whatever they are, and they
Gnarly looking thing.
yeah out there they're literally just short and
I honestly think too the biggest thing we messed up on is we didn't really know at the time, but we didn't really put any scent on our decoy, and definitely
Oh, you didn't, huh?
no.
we should have yeah we
We definitely should have
forehead gland or something.
Yeah, because I think basically they were, come to check him out and didn't probably smelt us on him instead.
Yeah.
But we didn't know at the time, and so we kind of packed it up. Actually, we headed home early, I think, or we headed home a day or so early because that's whenever Gage like fell out of the back of that truck and like hit his head or something and was in the hospital, and like mom and all them are calling like, oh, Gage is in the hospital, you know.
Yeah, so we rolled.
Had like slight brain bleeding or something. We're like, okay, well, we're just gonna pack it home, and he ended up being fine. But that was kind of the time we were just like, all right, yeah, we'll head home. And so never got to make it back out there that year at all.
That was our first trip out there, which all in all, good trip. I mean, we seen more giant deer in the 7 days we hunted there than. You know.
I left Kansas without a court date, so it was pretty good.
Oh my god.
Pretty good experience.
Good excuse to go back to Kansas though. And get a few more days to hunt. You know.
Right. That's true.
Yeah.
So we never made it back out. We were kind of hooked on it at that point, though. Seen lots of deer, just didn't make it happen. I'm like, man, I'll get a tag for the previous year. So, or the next year, and so tried to draw.
You didn't draw. That's when I drew.
Yeah, didn't draw at all. And at that point, my buddy's like, oh, you should draw every year. Didn't draw. Brady drew, goes out there.
This is that like end of COVID.
Yeah.
And so that's when like everything started getting hard to draw, and states were kind of getting, peak hunter numbers, non-residents coming in. So that's when I drew my tag and
had good success.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I ended up being successful, but not without massive amounts of error,
had a few
a lot of mistakes made and a lot learned. It's just such a different style of hunting than what we're used to. So it's not it's something where you got to make the mistakes like we made here, bow hunting and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so, once we'd made them mistakes out there and learned from them, I eventually did kill a deer.
Actually, going back to that trip, the first trip we were out there, I knew there was something else. We were like trying to go out cheap, we were like 17, and we like basically opened the freezer downstairs and packed like everything we had, from deer brats to
pheasants.
Yeah, whatever we had, just like, we're gonna live off this, and pack this little like Coleman grill and charcoal. And we get back to the hotel we were staying in one night, and it's so windy out, I can't even keep the grill lit. I'm like throwing these brats on there, and the grill's going out, and we grilled them for like maybe 10 minutes and was like, yep, good enough. Took them off, go inside. They're like the juiciest thing you've ever eaten. We eat them
just straight raw.
Yeah, like it had to be raw. And I'm talking to Dad on the phone, like, yeah, we made some brats, and I'm like, how long you think we ought to be cooking them? And he's like, at least 45 minutes, and I'm like, oh, we only had them on there for like 10, and the grill wasn't that hot. And he's like, no.
That just prefaces the snow goose hunting experience from this year, right, Allan?
Allan? You like them raw hammies, Allan?
Down asleep.
Yeah, they're good, dude. Good flavor, everything. You don't need to add salt, pepper.
He was just dreaming of them raw hammies.
Nothing, just straight raw.
Yeah, that was a
raw meat. I had to cook them up especially for Brady.
I know.
Yeah, they were raw. But that was kind of our first experience. And I was like, I'm going to have to teach you guys some things on the grill, because me and Brady were just slapping stuff on there, heating it up, and being like, yeah, it's good to go, and eating it,
Actually, looking back on it now, we definitely weren't 17. We had to be like 21, because we were 21 when we went out to turkey hunt. No, we were 20. Reese was 21.
Oh, I don't know.
So we would have been 20. We would have been 21.
You guys cooked like you were 17.
Yes, we cooked like we were 17.
That's what you guys meant to say.
So the first trip we took out there, we were 21, because that's whenever
we weren't that old. And
so don't trust you with brats, but ramen noodles are good to go, because you can eat those.
Yeah. We should have just brought them. But anyway, that's a whole nother thing. Don't let us. We can cook for you now, just not back then. So anyway, that was kind of the rest of that trip. Didn't draw the next year, and then I finally drew again
this year,
and I was like, yeah, man, this is like, it's gonna happen,
and did not draw a bow tag, draw an early Muzz tag.
I drew an early Muzz tag, didn't draw a bow tag. So I'm like, all right, well, I have a tag, like, this is great, we're gonna go out there, it's gonna be good. And so they're getting like good rain early, and I'm like, awesome, and then all of a sudden it gets like scorching hot, no more rain, everything dries up out there. There's like Milo, and basically beans, corn, like everything just dried up. Like,
Yeah, weren't you all
failed.
saying like the first year y'all went out, like the Milo was like as tall as you, and this year it was
And then the
a
last
quarter of the height.
Yeah.
the last two
Like-
that we've drawn tags.
Yeah,
have
when
been-
I drew my early Muzz tag, when I killed my deer, which I will have to tell that story on a different podcast, but it was
this
the
was
Milo.
just about tragedy.
The Milo wasn't that great, but when I finally killed the deer, it was in a good patch of Milo.
Yeah, but everything pretty well was like scorched. I mean, fried. So we get out there, pretty tough. We hunted, and I had a new truck at this point, so we definitely weren't.
Yeah, we
breaking
weren't
down.
worried about breaking.
We
down.
weren't worried about breaking down. That was the least of our worries. But we just, for the first 2 or 3 days, we saw a few deer, but just not really.
Yeah, it was more or less a lot of scouting, new
Yeah.
area.
And it was so hot and like dry. I guess you just
We were just trying to locate a deer just to say, X different properties off the map to say, oh, we
Yeah.
want to be on this one, not this one.
And then I think like the third day we were out there, we were sitting in it still wasn't that great of a patch, but a decent patch, I guess. And we had that deer stand up pretty well. It right in front of us, like, oh, there's a buck right there. And he come to like, at first glance, I was like, dang, that looks like a decent deer, and he just, remember he come in and
Yeah, he come walking right
we
to
just
us,
decided
like
that
30 yards.
he wasn't that big, or
Yeah.
wasn't mature anyway. I wasn't really going off of how big a deer. I was just trying to find a mature deer. And we ended up letting him go. Then we went in to hunt a different deer, just a giant 8 with splits on his G2s.
Yes.
We went in to hunt him, and
Identical split twos.
yeah, we go in to hunt him and walk all the way, like hiked way in. We're sitting in the top of this basically Milo patch, and like we weren't there that long, and these deer stand up, and I'm like glassing him, and I'm like, dang, I'm pretty sure that's him. And he's got these split G2s, and I'm like convinced, like, yeah, that's our deer. That's the one we're after, And I'm like, I don't know, he doesn't look as big as what the trail cam looked,
Yeah. No, we literally went back and forth 100 times.
Yeah.
Well, you guys called almost everyone.
Yeah,
and
well-
sent us the video that you did have,
Versus the trail cam
and
pic.
I remember I was like, there's no way that's the
No,
same deer.
when I tell you identical, yeah, I mean, well, you seen the
It had the same
Yes.
splits, but just the way the deer just went vertical versus the deer you were talking about. I mean, he was wide. He was tall. He was
yeah.
taller for sure, but his bases just went straight out and then up.
Well, that's what we ended up sending it to whatever our buddy out there, and he was like, no, after we talked to
Good
10
thing you didn't
yeah.
shoot that deer.
Well, no, he was actually,
actually
like,
told
that
us-
deer's really old.
Yeah, he said
He's
we
like,
actually could have
he's like, you
shot
could
him.
have
really?
killed him.
Yeah,
And we
but-
were like, we actually circled all the way
It was
around.
like 115-inch deer, 120-inch deer.
Yeah, but we circled all the way around him and actually kind of got on him and just got too dark, ran out of camera light. We opted to not shoot, and we just watched him basically jump the fence and head up to this watering hole and got out of there. And yeah, that was the age-long debate that night of was that
we probably talked about it for like 2-3 hours.
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, we had Spencer
not
on
longer.
FaceTime. We had Max,
me
you,
on
I
call.
was convinced, like,
Allan. We had everybody.
I go into this patch to hunt this deer. This deer's in there, and it looks just like him. Like, how is this not him? Like, has the exact same splits off his 2s, an 8-pointer. Like, how is this not him? Like, it has to be him. But no, it definitely was not him. So that was, I guess, that night. And then we hunted.
We hunted the next night in there again to try and kill him.
Yeah, we hunted the next night, and the only deer we saw, I think, was actually the deer.
Yeah, we
were
actually
supposed to
did
shoot,
see the deer we were supposed to shoot that
but
night.
he was way at the
Yeah,
very end of
He
the
was a
field.
mile. I mean,
And when you saw him that night, you knew it immediately.
Yeah,
that
we
the
knew
night
100
before. You're like, definitely a different.
yeah,
deer.
we knew 100% it was a different deer.
So
at
that's
that point.
whenever, and he was so far out. We were like, if we need a chance this deer, like, we got to go.
Yeah. Well, the hardest part. So, just so for the listeners can understand, the hardest part about that time of year is it's not literally 95 degrees. Like, you're hoping for. So the whole time in early muzzleloader season, you're literally hoping for like one north wind for like a day. If you can get it 2 days where it breaks over to like 60, 70 degrees,
Yeah,
would
or
be good.
the
but-
only other thing is if you can get it like so scorching hot that the deer have to get up and drink.
yeah,
Like, they just get up because they have to go drink. Other than that, if it's just hot, which a normal 95,
Yeah,
96,
80. Call it 85 to 95 degrees.
yeah,
on a
like
normal,
the deer just
you know.
basically don't move, and I mean until it's dark or it's
So you
cooled
got
off.
about the last, unless you actually see them like bed down in the morning, and you can get on them. You got like the last 5
You don't really even
minutes of
hunt in the
shooting light.
morning. You just go scout, and most of the time you don't see anything. So
How does the wind affect them out there, especially on the hot days? Like, do they tend to stay down more in the wind, or does it really matter out there?
well, we really like wind out there
Okay.
because you use it to your advantage. Really, if the wind's blowing good, you can get away with way more movement because the
Everything
wind-
else is
Yeah,
just
everything else. Is
Yeah,
right
you
Right.
can
there.
pretty well take their, if the wind's blowing 25 mile, steady, 20, 25 mile an hour, you can take their.
And the wind doesn't swirl like it does, here in some of
Right.
our hollers and stuff. So you get out there, and you get downwind, and
you can take their nose sense pretty much away from them.
Yeah.
You're downwind, you can walk right to
But
them.
you won't believe everyone's always like, "Oh man, Kansas is so windy," and then you want to wind, especially for whatever reason. Early that time of year, it's like every night it gets so still that it's like you can't move.
Yeah, you can't move.
And especially the Milo wasn't tall enough, and it's already dried out so much that it's so like
The
It's like
sound-
walking. It's like
yeah.
walking through a cornfield in October 31st here.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it's like any little move you make, it's like so loud, and so it's just it's tough, and I don't know why. We had a few good nights, and we're like, oh yeah, it's gonna be super windy, it's gonna be good, and then like right at prime time or whatever, it gets so still that it's like, yeah, this ain't good, and we just couldn't do anything. But we picked up that night, we saw that deer, and I was like, we're running out of light, like we gotta go if we got a chance. I picked our stuff up and literally tried to book it. I made it like halfway to him and realized that I'm out of shape and my legs were burning, and I was like,
What do you mean it's flat? You just have to keep walking.
yeah. I'm like crouched down trying to carry some stuff, and I'm like huffing and puffing, and like, yeah, I'm out of shape, and it got too dark anyway, and we were like, all right, let's basically, back out of here and
Right.
leave. And there's this one field that the year Brady killed his the previous year, we hunted, and it was like one of my favorite spots, like loaded with deer every night. And so I was asking my buddy, I'm like, what about that? What about that place again? And he's like, well, it was so dry they didn't get cropping. It was just a dirt field. But he's like, man, my dad drove by it the other day, and he's like, there was like 30 deer out there. He's like, they're out there every night. He's like, I don't know what they're eating. They're just in the dirt. And he's like, we saw 160-inch 10 out there the other night, but like it's just dirt. I don't know what they're eating. Like they're just in the dirt. I'm like, really? So anyway, he was like, yeah, you guys can go there tonight if you want. I was like, man, I think this might have been getting towards our last night. And I'm like, all right. I'm like, just getting a wild hair. Like it'd be awesome to just go video, just go sit and see what they're doing in the in the dirt. And so anyway, he was like, he's like, if I were you guys, I'd go sit over here. He's like, it's big, nasty ravines in there. It's secluded. The mile's not the greatest, but he's like, there's a giant 6x6 in there. He's like, I don't really know how big he is. They put cows in there for the early season.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I don't put cameras. He's like, he had cameras in there for like very beginning of spring basically, and he had this deer, and he said the bases were just absurd on it, and he said then he has to pull his cameras when they put cows in there, because the cows basically will go up and rub his camera off the post or where he's gotten. So he's like, it sucks, I can't run cameras in there. But he drives around, and he was basically glassing it, and he's like, I've seen this deer. He's like, I've only glassed him from like 1,000 yards away. But he's like, he looks like a just old giant 6x6. And he's like, kind of shorter tines, but big deer. Like, I think shows us where to go. I'd sit here. So he's like, but you do whatever you want. And I'm like, all right, that sounds fine. And it's like the only north wind was like the last day we were there.
Yeah, the last day of season.
Oh yeah, so,
Last day of
early muzzleloader season.
So this year we went out a week later than we went out. I killed mine the first week of season in 22. Yeah, 22. And then we went out this year a week later.
Yeah. So the last day of even season, and it's like that was Saturday night. No, it wasn't the last day of season. The last day of season would have been Sunday.
Right.
And we were there
right.
Saturday, and my buddy hadn't been able to hunt with us the whole time, and he was like, "Man, if you guys don't do any good tonight, he's like, you guys can stay, and I'll take you out tomorrow night." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's great and all, but I gotta work. I've been off for 10 days now, and I probably gotta work Monday, and I'm a long way from home." So I was like, but I was really tempted to stay and hunt with him because he knows what he's doing. I'm like, okay, well, we'll see. So me and Brady get down there, and we walk in, and still basically there was little like terraces in the field, and where the terrace would break over, where like it would hold a little bit of water, there was pretty good milo, and the rest of it was just not very good at all. So we get in this patch that's pretty tall, kneel down, get in it, and sit there basically for the evening. And we had a few does come out, nothing special. And then all of a sudden, like, a lot of does start piling out. For like that area, the deer density is not super high, and we probably had 10 does in front of us.
Yeah, we probably had 10. One doe come out early, but we probably had 10 like come out of the canyon.
And they were coming out this corner basically
How
to us.
close were they to you?
Well, they fed. The first one that came out was like 150 yards.
Yeah.
And then we had a few come out at, we're like 100 yards in this milo patch, basically off the field line. And these deer were basically coming out of this big grass field, or they were coming out of these ravines or canyons, coming up kind of in this grass, jumping the fence into the milo. And they're at that point, they're probably 100 yards from us. So they end up feeding we had some deer feed into us at like 5 yards. Like it was, I was in the most awkward position, and Brady's like, "Don't move," and my legs quivering and both falling asleep. I can't even feel either one of them, and I'm just wanting to like kick my legs out so bad. And he's like, "No," he's like, "Don't move. They're right here." And I'm like, I don't know what else to do. Like my legs are ready. It's like taking all I had, just sit there. And they get a little nervous. Like, and at the same time, we have zero wind. Like you hear a pin drop, and we're in a milo patch that, you move, rustle a little bit, and sounds like a squirrel in the leaves back here, So the deer get a little nervous, but they really don't know what's up. So then this buck comes in the field, a nice 8-pointer.
Yeah,
Probably 3-4-year-old.
3-year-old 8-pointer probably.
Nice deer comes in, and he basically gets all the way up to like 10 yards to 15 yards. He's like looking over at us, and I'm like trying not to move at all. And then we spot this deer in the back, and we're like, oh, I think like it's getting a little dark. And we're like, oh, I think that's like,
yeah. And you could, it was far enough away where you could just see big body, big rack.
Yeah.
Like you knew he was a shooter, but don't know what he is.
Yeah. Like that might be him, Well, these deer get a little nervous and kind of hold him. I think he would have entered the field a lot earlier.
Yeah, sooner than he would have, for sure.
So it's still like we got good light, but we're running low on camera light. Especially we're down in, in the milo, and you can't really move anyway. Basically, I like finally am able to get up enough that I'm looking through binos, and I'm looking at him, and I just tell like this is a like big deer, and he's coming, and I'm telling Brady like just stay down. He jumps the fence.
So keep in mind the whole time that he's saying, "Oh, big deer." I never once see this deer until he shoots.
Yeah. So I'm like, the whole time I'm like, "Oh, this is a big deer," and Brady's like, "Oh, I don't know." Like he's like, "We should probably just pack him, get out of here, before it really gets like, deer really get in here." And I'm like, "No, this is big deer." And he's like, "Are you sure?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm just watching him. And then he's like, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm like, and at this point he's already like 60 yards from us. I'm like, "Just wait." Like but I couldn't really move. I was just being patient with it. Well, he literally walks along the edge of the field. Like he's going to pass us up. He's walking along the edge, and I put down the binos, and I told Brady like,
you give them to me, because I was like, oh, well, if, we had like whatever.
You can't shoot a camera anyway.
Yeah, camera lights completely out.
Yeah, and I'm like,
if you're going to shoot, I'm going to put my binos on him and see where you're going to shoot him. So I got my binos at this time, and he's got his gun.
Yeah, and I'm like, I have to basically do something, or it's going to be.
Yeah, we have.
And I didn't know what to do because we're in this milo. Can't really move much. And I told Brady, I'm like, I'm just going to try it. Like I grab my gun in one hand, and I'm adjusting my shooting stick on the ground, kind of like how much I'm going to need it. And I look at Brady, and I'm like, I'm going to stand straight up on like the count of 3, I'm gonna stand straight up and I'm gonna barrel down on him and like
Let it go.
Yeah, it's gonna make it happen. And so we stand straight up, and he's like dead in line with us, 40 yards.
At
And
most.
can you see him at
Well,
this point
yeah,
then?
we stood up at the same time. So whenever he stands up, barrels down, gets in the scope, I pull my binos up and I look at him. And I almost double take at first because he's standing perfectly broadside, looking right at us. His head's facing, his rack's
Yeah,
facing
and
right
we're
at us.
talking
And I'm like,
40 yards. You know,
the only thing I said, I was like, you need to fucking shoot. Like, you need to kill this dude.
yeah, that's
mega.
yeah. And so anyway, yeah,
Oh,
like
God.
the whole time he was like disbelief, like, oh, I don't know, are you sure? Like, we don't want to mess up. Are you sure? And I'm like, yeah, I'm sure. So we stand up, and then that's when he obviously really sees him. It's like, yeah, you need to kill this deer. So I dropped basically my tripod, put the gun on it, cock back, and I'm like dead on him, like, yeah, this is it. And he's just looking at us, don't know what's like, couldn't have been more perfect. And I basically was like, are you ready? Squeeze the trigger, and it's like poof. And I'm like,
Yeah.
basically the primer in the muzzleloader went off, nothing else went off.
Gosh.
And and so me and Brady both look at each other and like, what in the, what the fuck just happened? I like try to put another primer in, and the deer just kind of like bounds off over the hill,
man.
and just couldn't even we couldn't get back on it. He basically jumps the fence, goes down over the hill, and I was like, yeah, that was kind of the highlight to the trip.
And not even a couple days before, we were shooting bows, and you came out with the muzzle loader to shoot. Remember?
Yeah,
At Allan's
and the
house.
first shot, poof.
The first shot did the same thing, and actually it blew basically smoke out of the end. I mean, the bullet actually came out of the end, but we were shooting at 40 yards on a target the side of a barn and didn't even hit it. And I was like, but it hadn't been clean from the year before. I won't mention names or who didn't clean it, but wasn't clean from the year before, and so
It still had blood on it, didn't it?
yeah, dude,
I want to say
it had
that.
killed like
It was from when I killed my Kansas deer.
yeah,
Yeah.
it had so much blood and stuff. It had so much blood and stuff corroded on it, and so I like it took some serious cleaning, So I might have put too much boar butter and stuff in it, honestly, when I was cleaning it.
Did you shoot it again once you got to Kansas? Besides the time?
No,
No.
I
Shot
kept telling Brady several times we were doing nothing during the day, and I'm like, let's just take an old piece of cardboard and go shoot this thing again, just so like, because we were running out of time and we had worked so hard here we were working 14, 15-hour days and just didn't really have time to even go shoot this muzzleloader before we went out there. And so when I did go to shoot it, it was kind of a rainstorm coming in. Shot it real quick. The first shot, obviously, something didn't malfunctioned, didn't hit the target. So never had that happen before either, and shot that muzzleloader a lot. So repacked it, shot it again twice, and it shot exceptionally well whenever I shot it the second 2 times, and was like, okay, and I figured the first time was like, I just had way too much cleaner in it, because the second 2 shots were good. And so, I don't know. Unfortunately, I wanted to shoot it the rest of the time we were out there, and I shouldn't have been.
Didn't have a chance.
Yeah, reach over there and grab it.
I shouldn't have been
You're
lazy.
good.
I shouldn't have been lazy. I should have, beer break. Got to wet the whistle. I should have definitely shot it again when we were out there, but yeah,
Ice cold.
my stories on this episode are gonna make you want to drink.
Yeah. Well, because I don't know if we can talk about it, but I don't think your buddy ever got more photos of him on a camera.
Yeah,
But
no.
I hear he may have spotted him through a.
Yeah.
Scope.
So anyway, after the whole thing goes down, I go back, tell my buddy, man, like we had him, 40 yards dead. Something didn't happen with the muzzleloader. We gave it a look. It just, the bullet didn't even come out. So
Yeah. deer left healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to at least ask for that if you're
Right.
gonna miss it.
Right.
Right.
100%. So at this point, I'm tempted to like stay the next day, but I'm also so disappointed that, this whole trip's been tough. We got our butts kicked. We just had this happen, and I got to go to work on Monday. And so we elected that we left Sunday morning, made it home. My buddy was like, oh, I'll get some cameras in there, see what's going on. He was like, I'll get pictures of them and send them to you so, you can, get a good look at him for a while. I'm like, yeah, I appreciate it. So anyway, some time goes by, and I text me one day, and he's like, hey, man. He's like, got pictures of that deer that was in there. It's like, I'm not sure if you're going to want to see him or not. I was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to either, So he sends me the pictures, and it was a giant. I would say
He's call it 190 to
pushing 200.
He's pushing
He's
two.
pushing
He's
two.
195 to
His
200.
mass was crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
Crazy mass,
that was like
6x6.
7.5 inch bases. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
at least.
So my buddy goes, man, he's like, I definitely overlooked that deer. He's like, I didn't know I sent you in there after a 200. He's like, I had no clue.
I would have been in there.
Yeah. He's like, you would have been in there in the first
You'd have
place.
never found out about that deer until he's dead.
So we basically were sitting there.
He's cool, dude. I mean,
Yeah.
But
So
he get
all jokes, all
unfortunately, he was like, man, giant. Well, he told me, he's like, everyone knows about that deer around here now, and there was different people hunting him. And actually a guy like 2 miles from where my mishap was, like, tried to shoot him with a bow and like grazed him or something, and he basically got away. Well, my buddy ends up like watching him in a spotter for a while one day during the rut, and he didn't have a tag. Obviously already filled his tag, and no one was
already filled his tag on a 204.
Yeah, 204. So,
Sad.
someone's no one's around basically to come in and hunt it, and this. So he just watched it for a while, and so the deer's actually, still alive. It's running around, but he ended up. He was like, man, that deer is like over the hill, like 8+. So 3 years ago, some guy around there
working on the wind farm.
Yeah, working on a wind farm, found his sheds, and they were 187 with no spread then. And not that he was, way bigger or anything, but he was
Right at 200.
Yeah, real similar. So definitely just an old buck. And the picture, if I could show you, his front end's so big it looks like he's gonna tip over. Like he's just a big. It looks like a steer,
Hey, the cool thing would have been had we actually killed him that night and walked up on that deer.
I would have drove to Kansas.
Dude, I think we both would have fallen over just because, like, obviously looking at him through binos, kind of in the gray light. We knew he was big, but until you actually see like the trail cam picture of him, that's when we're
my buddy doesn't miss a beat. Like he knows every single deer he's got, usually around there, and he just happened to let this one slip. And so when he tells us, yeah, it's a mainframe or just a 6x6, he's got some giant bases, not very, tall tines and everything. I'm under the impression, okay, we're going in after 150 inch, like a nice old deer, not under the impression that it was never that big, So when I see him, I was like, holy, like I was telling him, I was like, I don't know if this is deer supposed to be hunting or not, but just, the body on him was huge. I knew that basically I was willing to take the chance to shoot him and be like, yeah, well, this is deer, like it was a plenty mature deer, but ended up being him. He just didn't, and it was a mainframe 6x6. He just had a bunch of different trash and was a lot bigger than we imagined. So unfortunately we came home with no deer.
Yeah.
But if we would have killed him that night and walked up on him, yeah, we both would have.
Everybody in the county would have known.
Oh, we would have fallen over. But and the
They
whole,
known.
Throughout like the couple of years we've been out there, whatever, we just got to, give a huge thanks to our buddy. I'm not even going to say his name because I don't even know if he wants it said or not. But we just got to give a huge thank you to him for
Yeah.
allowing us to
Right.
come out and
Hell of a guy.
yeah, does all the scouting and just pretty much allows
Yeah,
us to
putting
come
up
out.
with all my bad luck. Every time I'm out there, I'm afraid he's going to be like, yeah, don't come back. You're no good luck.
Yeah, so definitely one of the coolest dudes. in the game.
Brady's allowed out there,
Yeah.
but not you.
Yeah, you stay away from here. So, anyway, that was the gist of that trip. And so we ended up, rifle season out there is at the end of the rut, basically somewhere around December, December the 5th or 6th this year, I think. So with their rifle season, with my muzzleloader tag, I can hunt again. I just have to use my muzzleloader. So my muzzleloader is lucky that it didn't stay in a ditch in Kansas somewhere, and then I actually brought it home. So
Don't have to clean it anymore.
Yeah.
If you do that.
yeah, I decided, you know what, I'm not taking my muzzleloader at all. So I borrowed Max's muzzleloader. He's got a lot better scope and stuff on his, and so took it, went and shot it several times before we made it out there this time. And but the only thing that was different is you have to, versus muzzleloader season or rifle season, you're going to have to shoot like probably some decent distances. And so I go to shoot Max's muzzleloader, and I was shooting like 200 grain bullets basically out of my muzzleloader. And I go to shoot Max's, and he's got like 310 grain. And I'm like, dude, are we shooting a cannon here? Like, in the Kansas wind and stuff, like that thing's going to fall off after 100 yards, quick. And he's like, oh, you'll be fine. I'm like, all right, So anyway, we shoot it, shoots good and everything. Me and Brady left. Well, we were going to head back out there for like a week again, but we had some stuff come up. We ended up working for the National Deer Association, which was a great time, great event.
Shout out Aisha.
Yeah. Yeah. She got her first deer.
She got her first deer this
Yep.
weekend.
Was happy to do that whole event. It was
Super cool.
yeah, it's called Field to Fork. Basically took a bunch of people that have never been hunting before. A lot of them had never even shot guns
Touched
before.
a gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we do a whole basically gun safety
Good one to
shooting.
start with.
Yeah. Well,
Yep.
they have to take their hunter safety course before they're allowed to even enter the enter the event, I guess. So there's 15 hunters. They all have mentors.
Granted, there was 2,500 that signed up, and they picked 50.
Yeah.
Oh, was there that
Yeah.
many?
Yeah. There's
Okay.
always a bunch that
500.
sign up.
Yeah, so they had 15 lucky hunters, and we
2,500.
2,500.
100?
Yeah, like 2,500.
Yes.
Okay.
Holy
So
cow.
And they only picked 15.
okay, so 15 lucky
That's sending a
participants.
resume or what? Like, it's like
I don't know.
Anyway,
Anyways, yeah, long story short, we got to work for the NDA, got to take
We
a bunch of people
took a bunch of
hunting
people
that have
hunting
never
that
been
had never been hunting, and a lot of them got their first deer. So it was
what? 15 went, and how many people shot? 12?
10.
10?
10,
it's
yeah.
not
With some-
very good.
yeah.
some minor
We had a couple mishaps, or
mishaps.
a couple
with
people
some
knocked
others,
some deer
but-
down, and they ended up getting back up and just were unable to recover them. So unfortunate, but 10 out of the 15 hunters, and it was tough weather, so did very good. It was a lot of fun, but we had to basically push the trip back a week to head to Kansas.
No,
Hey.
we had to push it. Back. Yeah. I know
Yeah,
what you're
we had to
saying.
go
Yeah,
a week
back.
early
Yeah.
because we weren't able to go the time that we were wanting to for the week. So we just made an extended trip, like
Left on a Thursday.
left-
Hunted Thursday night.
yeah, Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So make it out there. Roddy's like, well, he's like, yeah, I got plenty of deer. Like, come out, we'll try to end the curse. And so, like, all right, sweet, and we heading out there, and I'm like, I'm gonna end the curse this time. So get out there, and he's actually, well, I don't know, how much time I'm gonna have. He's a busy guy. He's like, I will. I'll send you in some farms. He's like, I don't know if I'm actually going to be able to go hunting with y'all. Well, he ended up hunting with us the first like two
2
days.
days. Yeah.
We had seen a lot of good deer. Actually, one big deer that we were going to chase, like hopped the fence right in front of us and goes on to a place that he doesn't own or have permission on. And it was a big 6x5. I mean, jumped the fence right in front of us. Like the second morning we were there.
175 inch.
Yeah, like 175 inch typical.
That is tough.
And I'm looking at him in my binos like that. Man, that's a, that's a giant. And I almost get attached to him like, yeah, that's the one I want. Like that's a big deer. And walks right by the neighbor's blind that he has set up, and I'm like, what? The neighbor's not hunting. He's like, oh man. He's like, they just road hunt everyone else's stuff. I'm like, go figure. If they were hunting their blind, they could have just killed a big deer. So he was like, man, I don't know what that deer's doing. Like, go in that direction for. He's like, he never leaves, my place. Like 99.9% of the time, he's always over here. And I'm like, dude, that's because I'm back in Kansas, baby. So he's like, hoping that he's just looking for the last available doe. He's going to maybe loop back around and come back down basically along the river where he had a bunch of cameras. And he's like, hopefully I'll get him on camera down there. If he's in there, he's like,
is he running cell cameras in there?
Yeah, a lot of cell cams. Okay. And he's like, we can definitely, if he shows back up down there, like we'll have a really good shot at killing him. I'm like, all right. So 2 days go by and we were hunting some other ground, kind of waiting on him to show back up. And so we went and sat one farm. Actually, the farm that I missed or my muzzleloader malfunctioned on that 200. Go in there and hunting, and we're sitting kind of up on this mound, kind of overlooking these big valleys, and Brady was like, oh, here comes something, whatever. He's like, I think it's a deer, and it ended up being a coyote, this big woolly coyote. I'm like, man, I should shoot that thing. But at the same time, I'm like, I got a muzzleloader. I'm going to have to reload. I'm probably going to blow all the deer out of here. And I'm like, I got to end this curse. So I didn't shoot him. Well, right after that, he turns around, runs down into this valley, and runs all the deer out of it. I'm like, yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah.
Should have shot it.
This is nice.
Right.
Could have ended the curse right there.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't 2 seconds later, but 7 does come up out of the canyon.
And then right after that, the big 8, or I call them big 8, the 8 that come out, the same 8 that we had in front of us at 10 yards or 12 yards the night that I shot at that big one, comes out and kind of with these does. And I'm like, man, well, that deer's still in here. And he's kind of messing around. And I picked up a set of rattling horns. Just comes sprinting right to us. And at the time, we didn't know it was him. So I was like, I don't know. That looks like a pretty nice deer. Rattle comes in. I'm like, oh, that's just the 8 that we seen early season. It was, once again, a 3-year-old probably. So cool encounter. The coyote's basically still standing, running deer out. Never got another opportunity to kill him. So at that point, I'm like, man, should have just, took the coyote. So the next morning, we're driving around. My buddy's dad watches an old mature buck run a doe up into this canyon, basically. And we had a good wind. And he says that it was basically a fawn that went into cycle, went into heat. And he's like, it run her up in there. And he's like, if, you ought to have a good chance. Like if you want to basically sneak up through there, it's super windy. And he's like, them old mature bucks, like, you won't see them any dumber than when they're on just a hot, basically
fawn.
It's one of the last ones. And he's like, basically creep through there with the wind in your favor. And he's like, basically trying to get them to stand up, or, they don't know what we are. And so he's like, hopefully get them to stand up and be able to get a shot off before they take off. And a lot of times too, the fawn doesn't know what's going on. Like it's clueless. So he's like, and the buck ain't going to go nowhere without the fawn. So he's like, well, just go in there, see if you can't make it happen. So me and Brady go in there, and this deer basically gets up out of there. He's like 60 yards at one time, and I barrel down on it. And it really didn't meet the description. He was like big, heavy, dark chocolate horns. He's like, if it was a 10, he's like, it'd probably be in the 60s, but he couldn't tell if it was a 10 or 8 or what, but just big, mature, heavy, dark chocolate horn deer. Well, so first thing I do, I throw up I didn't actually throw up. I throw up my gun. Yeah.
That was after that 200.
I wanted to throw up after that deer.
Yeah.
So anyway, I throw up my gun on this deer, and instantly it didn't ring me as like the deer he was talking about. Like it didn't have a whole lot of mass, and I was just like, man, I don't know. And so I'm trying to ask Brady, like, should I shoot that deer? Should I shoot that deer? And he, he's messing with the camera stuff. He's like, I don't know. You're going to have to judge it yourself. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
okay.
I was filming. I'm getting everything set up.
So,
all the settings and boom.
and I don't
boom,
want to mess up. So I'm trying to basically look at the body at this point, and I'm like, man, that deer. I'm going through all the signs of a mature deer. And I'm like, yeah, man, that deer's plenty mature. Well, about that time he jogs and goes up kind of over the hill. Brady still has a great shot at him. The only thing I can see is like his head and his horns. And I'm like, Brady's like, yeah, I think we should kill that deer. And I'm like, well, too late now. I can only see its head, Well, the doe or the fawn, basically, we never even seen her. And so he like standing up on this hill and he turns around and he kind of bounds back towards us, and we never got another opportunity. And so I wasn't too bummed though. I didn't want to shoot that deer, and it had the headgear. It could have been a young deer, And so I really was like looking at the body, and it ended up, I would say it was a 5.5.
Yeah, it was probably
5.5-year-old deer. So plenty well could have shot it. I just didn't have the time to,
gauge and
age it. And by the time I did, it just wasn't going to happen. And I didn't want to shoot it and then go up there and be like, oh man, I just shot 130-inch 3-year-old, So like that would only made the case worse. So didn't shoot it. So I think after that, the next night
we hunted the.
My buddy was like, okay, this like 2 days later. That morning, I'll go start with that morning. We're going to hunt with my buddy, and he sends me pictures, and he's like, hey, I'm going to send you in on this farm. He's like, this giant eight's been in there like all night long on a cell cams. He's like, he's in here somewhere. There's plenty of other deer in there too, but he's like, been there all night. Like, go in, and there's this big plateau in there, and you can see for miles. He's like, go sit up on top of that, and he's like,
you'll see a shooter for sure.
Like, you'll probably see a shooter. I'm like, all right, sweet. So me and Brady walk in, and it is blistering cold, like 18 degrees.
Yeah, 18, 19
with like
degrees.
30-mile-an-hour Kansas winds, and we're sitting on the top of the highest plateau in Kansas, and the wind is just screaming, and I'm like freezing. We're sitting up on this hill basically, and we see like 3 does. I think that's it. Like, pretty tough morning. So, well, we see like 3 or 4 people just driving in circles around the place we're hunting, basically road hunting, looking for something to shoot, And it's like, seriously, like, we'll watch them drive around all morning. So, we're sitting up on top of this basically plateau, and I'm sitting there, and I look down, and I'm like, is that that's a coin? And I end up finding a penny up there, basically brushed the dust off of it. And
obviously it was heads down for you, man.
No, it was heads up.
It was heads up.
I'm telling you.
Maybe for next year.
Yeah, it better be. Actually, I still got the penny with me because I'm going to hold on to that stuff.
That's right.
So I picked this penny up. I literally look at Brady. I'm like, yeah, our luck's changed. And, I just found the penny in the middle of nowhere, on the top of a plateau on heads. Like, I told Brady, I was like, we're killing a deer tonight.
Probably fell out of his pocket.
No, it actually, I'm pretty sure it had fallen out of my pocket the year I killed
We hunted
there whenever I killed my deer.
It had been up there for a while. But anyway, it didn't have any luck in it, apparently, because I held on to it that night. My buddy texted us, like, yeah, he's like, I'm going to send you guys in after the 6x5. He's like, he hadn't showed back up, but he's like, I think he's bedded on the neighbors here. And that's the only place like he could be, and he's feeding over into my Milo field. I'm like, sweet, I got this penny. We're going after the giant 6x5. Like, it's gonna happen. But he's like, man, the neighbors over there. He's like, I hope they don't mess with you guys. Like, he was like, I'd have sent you guys in there, a few days sooner, but there's a good chance you get messed with. And I'm like, really? Like, what are you talking about? He's like, well, he kills some really big deer out there. Well, I guess if they see his truck or they see him glassing a field, they just assume there's a big deer in there. And like, we'll do basically anything to like ruin it, or I don't know. So me and Brady go in to hunt this spot, perfect setup, looking sweet. And we're like, man, I'm fit like, yeah, this is the night. We weren't sitting there, 30 minutes. And
yeah, if that.
This guy comes in on the north road and basically parks, like sees us and stops. And I'm like, what, like what could possibly go wrong, or what could they possibly do? So sitting there, we're glassing him, and he's basically looking right at us, with his binos. And so he sits there for a good 30 minutes, and I'm starting to get pissed off. Like, just go on with your business. Like, I'm on ground I have permission on. I'm just hunting. Like, what the? I was just getting mad.
Did you text your buddy and?
I was trying to text him
Yeah,
hey man, they're watching us, or someone's watching us. About that time, 3 more trucks come rolling up the hill.
Talking to the mic.
Sorry. So they keep coming up the hill, and they sit and have a little meeting, whatever. So at this point, I'm really all right, something's about to go down, trying to get a hold of my buddy. Well, they go over the hill, and basically, to give you basically a picture to imagine, there was this long strip of woods, this grass field, and then it come into our basically cut milo field. So the deer were bedded in this basically strip of woods, or this big thick grass field they had, and then there was a fence, which was the property line, into this cut milo field. And so we were just hunting deer that we thought were bedded in, their timber, that were going to come and feed that night. So they go over the hill, they, I guess, open their lower gate, whatever. Next thing you know, 2 guys are driving up and down along the fence, right on their side of the fence, up and down it in their trucks. And I'm
like back and forth.
Yeah, basically.
God.
They have 3 guys they let off that are basically pushing out the woods, doing a deer drive. And I'm like, what the? I see them kind of walking the woods. I'm like, no way. Basically, they were pushing out the woods, and these 2 guys were driving up and down the fence line.
How far are they away from you? Would you?
Well, the fence was
300 yards.
Oh,
I think it was farther than that.
It may have been a little. We couldn't shoot it. We couldn't shoot the deer
No.
would have had to come off of them, jump the fence, and come 200 yards into the milo.
I
for
think
us to
it
be
was
able to
500 across
Yeah.
it from where we were sitting. So a good ways. And yeah, I couldn't just my muzzleloader, I can only shoot, let's call it with Max's big
100 yards.
lead.
Yeah, 150, 175. We're maxed out.
Yeah. So anyway, they're pushing this out. And I'm like, seriously, basically the guys along the fence were keeping the deer from running to us. They didn't want to bust them out and push them to us. They were basically pushing out all the woods, I guess, so we couldn't see or kill nothing. Cause and they didn't know, me and Brady's in there. They just assumed that my buddy's in there with his cousin or whoever, So they assume, oh, there's got to be a big deer in here. We're just going to shove out all the woods and, basically
Gun it down.
Yeah, keep them from killing anything. So we're sitting there, and I'm really pissed at this time. We're like, man, just let that big deer, run up right in front of that truck, jump the fence, and
Take out one of the guys.
yeah.
Yeah,
Jump the
So
spears him.
we start seeing deer basically running out, and there's this wheat bottom, just to the south of us. So 3 or 4 does are jumping the fence in this wheat, and the next thing you know, there's 5, 6, 10 does in the wheat. And the deer don't even know what's going on. Half the deer are just going to eating wheat. And I'm run. I'm sitting there telling her, get the hell out of there, these guys who know, who knows. Well, about that time, well, here comes the buck. The big 6x5 jumps the fence into the wheat. Another giant 9 jumps the field into the
2
wheat.
shooters.
The 9 was 150-inch deer, and then you had the 6x5 that was, a true 175-inch typical. And they're just standing in the wheat. They have no clue what's going on.
And how far?
They're
Probably 500
from us, but they're on these people's place,
Oh,
well,
my.
a truck comes screaming around on the lower road and basically parks on the lower road that I guess they were going to drive them to. And 3 guys get out with rifles barreled down. And I'm sitting there are you kidding me? They're going to kill this big deer right in front of us by doing this. And honestly, I don't I'm got it in my binos, and I'm ready for them to just drop him. He couldn't have been that far from them. And they were just standing there clueless. They had no clue what was going on. The does are still eating wheat, and I'm sitting there telling Brady, why are they not running? I'm pissed off. Are they really going to kill him like this? So basically, they just kind of hung around. No one ever shoots. Next thing you know, the deer ended up between basically us and these guys. with guns. And so I'm kind of looking at the deer in my binos. They're still in these people's place. And
With like, sorry, I just have like any like trajectory of their bullet would like.
yeah, so they're
Okay.
elevated a little bit higher than us, and they're like 500 yards
Oh my
probably from us.
gosh.
And I see 3 rifles barreled down.
That's
on
what I'm
us.
saying.
Yeah.
Like,
Legit, like
Get
3
down.
rifles
No,
barreled down.
that's when we stood up and we were like,
And I told
"Fuck
Brady,
it,
I was like,
we're leaving.
hell with this. Like, I don't care if they push some deer over here. We're getting out of here. This is stupid. Like, you know.
we're gonna get shot. I mean,
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, it's flat out there. 3 guys with rifles, big deer in front, between us. Like, and I got a muzzleloader, been like on,
we
the
were
front
yeah,
line
I
of the
mean,
Civil War.
We were about to
was
be
I gonna,
Swiss cheese.
Yeah, was I gonna fire back with my 1 ball of lead?
Start marching at them.
yeah, yeah.
I ain't even got a bayonet on the end. So
The old orange coats.
I was tell Brady, I was like, hell with this. Like, we're out of here. So stand up, walk over the hill, and they got another truck up basically on my buddy's ground along the side of the road just to keep them, like, if they run on that way. Just a whole shit show. And I was pissed. It's like 4:30 in the evening. Somehow, the deer made it out cleanly. They never shot, and they basically pushed them back onto my buddy's place. I guess push them back across the road onto my buddies. There was the big 9, actually. Me and Brady get in the truck, and we go driving down the road. The big 9 standing in the middle of the grass field.
Yeah.
And Brady's like, oh, like, there he is right there. I throw the truck in reverse and floor it back, grab our stuff, hop back out of the truck, try to make it back over the hill just to get kind of back where we were. And I guess the big 9 basically made a loop and went right back to where he was.
Had we actually stayed like where we were originally sitting, and had he actually done what he did when we got up and left, he probably would have been 70 yards from us.
Like I probably could have killed him.
How big was that? Do you think?
He's probably
150?
150. Yeah.
But at the time it wasn't worth. Then we were like, oh, we should just say.
Yeah, there was no reason
But-
for us to stay there and get fucking
But there was
shot at.
Yeah, like I didn't know what these guys were going to do. They've already basically seen us sitting there, ruin their. And the bad part about it was, if they would have just come in and they had some blinds set up down there, if they would have just went and set their blind over the grass field, and cut him off from bedding to our food,
They'd have killed him.
they could have killed him. But instead, they're driving around looking for.
Impatient.
Well, no, they're not even hunting their own place. They're driving around the roads, basically road hunting. So, anyway, it's 4:10, 4:30,
Yeah.
and it gets dark in 45 minutes. I'm not happy. So we get in the truck. I speed up to the place where we hunted the previous night,
Cut their
and
tires and left.
yeah, I hunted the previous night where we saw the coyote, and I'd missed that big deer. And sure enough, the wind wasn't good to hunt that spot, but I'm glassing. Sure enough, right where we had set the night before, there's a shooter, like a big stud 10. And I'm like, go figure. The night before we're in there, nothing. Tonight, right where we had been sitting, big deer. But the wind wasn't right. I mean, we
Yeah.
couldn't.
He was there
push it.
because we weren't.
Yeah, we couldn't push it. So that was just kind of a,
A kick in the ball.
Yeah.
kick to the sack. That,
I didn't even hear about that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we glass him from the road, and I'm like, God, big deer. But there was not a whole lot I could do. It was getting dark. We kind of watch him, try to get up around him. We got within the distance, close the distance on a few deer, but just not him. So that was kind of
The end of
that
Round
story. And so my buddy was like, yeah, man. He's like, I'm sorry, that happened. He's like, and these guys, after
we
we'd
warn you about it. So that's
actually
Yeah, he warned us.
when
Yeah,
me
he
and
did.
when me and Brady got back out of the truck and we're headed back in, like when we saw that 9 and we were headed back in, they like loop back around and are like, no way. Like it was almost like they're like, what are they coming back in here to hunt again? Like they'd almost seen us drive off and then like us get back out of the truck. And it's almost like they knew like, oh, they seen something, and they were like lining back up to go push out the woods again. Like they're, like there's no way they're going to sit here tonight. Like we're going to push it out again. And so I told Brady, I was like, let's just get out of here. We left. The guy comes driving by us like 100 miles an hour, speeds off, goes down away from his property, and I guess starts road hunting someone else's ground again. And I mean, just really unfortunate. Like,
They were just trying to cut you off more than anything.
no, they blew right by us and went the complete opposite way we were going, but away from the ground they
Yeah, I
own.
mean, they're just pieces of shit.
Yeah,
I mean,
hunting
that's what it
someone
comes-
else's
That's
ground.
what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I mean,
So, but unfortunately, I mean, it was their ground. They could do what they want. I had
Yeah.
nothing to get them
Yeah.
on.
I'm just saying for the fact that how they road hunt other people's shit is
Yeah,
is
and
what's
I mean,
stupid.
just shitty what they did in the first place. They had blinds set up. They could go sit in their blind and kill big deer. I watched the big deer walk by their blind 3 days prior, and then he easily could have fed out right next to their blind that night, But instead, we're gonna go push out our whole woods, point some guns at some guys, and
and I mean,
and
the
shove out
first
all the
time for
woods
you.
so no one sees anything.
Yeah, and the saddest thing is that call it, you could have called a conservation agent. There's one agent per 4 counties.
Is road hunting? I'm assuming it's completely illegal.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Run and
But
chase deer, I'm sure.
out there, it's so heavy. Like that's what everyone like that morning. They were all driving around when the word got out that big deer was around. There were so many people just driving around hoping to see him, and everything is basically out of state license.
Gosh, it's like shooting dove off a power line.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate. I really don't understand it. It really gets under your skin. We could only do so much about it, unfortunately, and so that was just kind of. That was almost the end of that trip. We hunted the next day. We hunted the next morning.
Yeah, no, we said, we packed up. We said,
It's Sunday again at this point.
since we're packed up,
We got to
said we'll
work
just
Monday.
drive around, and if we see something, we'll make a play on it. If we don't, we'll head home.
So
Well, let's all put in for tags at Kansas next year and not bring Landen, of course. And
yeah,
see how it goes.
leave me at home if you want to kill something. So my Kansas curse only grows from here. That was kind of the end of that story again. It went from
And hopefully there's better stories to come.
there. Well,
Like next year,
I'm
2024,
gonna
baby. Let's go.
apply for tags again, but I'm worried that I may not draw next year, and so it may be
maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
We'll all try to draw and
yeah. So we'll see how long the Kansas curse continues, but as of right now, Kansas has been pretty tough. We've had some opportunities. We went from some of the highest highs to lowest of lows, and it's been a ride. But hopefully, one of these times, our luck's gonna change.
yeah, a little bit of doom and gloom this podcast.
Maybe I should pass my penny off to someone else because it ain't doing me no good. So yeah, unfortunately, that's kind of the story right now of where we're sitting for me in Kansas, and hopefully, one of these days, I'll be able to end that curse and things to start looking up. But for now, I don't know. I'm kind of scared to go back to Kansas. Who knows what's going to happen next?
Maybe this time you'll meet the neighbors.
I don't know if I want to meet the neighbors. That might not be pretty.
Yeah,
I
I reckon that.
let them do their own thing and continue.
Yeah, a bunch of hones.
Yeah, a bunch of hones. So I don't know. I don't know. It can't get. I mean,
Don't say it. Don't say it. Can't get much worse
No.
than that, right?
It could
best-
always get worse.
The best thing that come out of it is we learned a lot, from it.
Yeah, always shoot the coyote.
Yeah.
always shoot the no, we started shooting a primer.
Looking back on it,
Clean the muzzleloader, shoot a primer through it, and we
I-
haven't had a misfire problem since then.
I never pushed the powder out of my muzzleloader after for 2 or 3 hunts, and it never. I mean, super dry out there, never rained anything. I don't know if I could blame it on that, but at the night it would get I don't know. It would get down fairly cool at night and then really hot during the day, and I don't know if there was enough moisture just to make it. I don't know.
or cleaner,
I don't know what
something.
happened. But anymore, I basically pushing my powder out after every hunt, or after every day, and repacking it. Also, after cleaning it, putting a primer in there, just popping the cap off just to blow anything out that's in the.
Get a little,
barrel.
powder in there
Yeah.
just to dry some stuff up.
Yeah.
if there is anything in
Absolutely. So that's kind of a few things that I've learned to. I'm going to look into one of them nitro fires too.
Yeah,
there. The traditions. Yeah.
heard good things about them.
So I mean, things are going to look up, and we keep learning from these trips, but definitely not how I imagined our trip or this year to Kansas to go. But they need some rain for sure.
But we still got muzzleloader season here.
Yeah, for sure. And I was able to fill my tag here in Missouri this year on a old stud, so definitely pleased with that.
That'll be a much more happier podcast.
maybe I just
when we
need to-
talk about that.
I just need to stay to Missouri.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I'm sure the neighbors in Kansas wouldn't mind that either.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, hopefully, got my fingers crossed that maybe next year will be the year. So we still got, looking on to the rest of this year, we still got late muzzleloader, like you just said, and bow season ends January 15th. So we still got plenty of time. We're going to do some doe management still.
See if we can't find a late season.
Are you
buck
guys going to be
somewhere.
doing some doe management on the TBO Kirksville farm?
Yeah, we hope to be.
Awesome.
For sure.
Awesome.
So we got a few hunts planned, bringing some people in as well. Have never killed a deer, and hopefully get their first deer. And we might be able to find a late season stud still. After me and Brady took both mature deer off our farm, we're hoping something mature has come in. But
Yeah, we're going to shoot some does either way. We got some people we're going to take up there, so
it should be fun. We got a lot to look forward to the rest of the year still. So should be good. But until then, hopefully my Kansas curse is going to live on for the rest of this year. So, and until we end that, hopefully I'll be able to come on here and tell you a happy ending. But for now, that's all I got. So hopefully you guys are having better luck than I am and can put a tag around a main beam.